Hello, ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here. Continuing on with collection videos, because I'm a sad individual, and that's what I do. No, not going with that. It could be worse, I could have a watermelon on my head. Inside joke. So today we're going to be doing, PS1. PlayStation, the original. I'm going to be doing these collection videos. So, starting that off, we've got Alundra by Working Designs. This is probably the best Zelda clone ever made. That's just hands down. I love using the term Zelda clone. Can you tell? It's awesome. You're an elf. You go into people's dreams, and you get all sorts of Zelda-esque weapons, like bombs. I think there are bombs in it. I don't know if you can actually equip them or if they're just scattered throughout the dungeon. Everything I've seen, they're just kind of scattered everywhere. So, bombs. But really cool. It's a 2-disc case, but it's only a 1-disc game. That's going to be a big theme with PS1 titles, because I don't know what it was about that, but they loved their giant-ass cases. Next up, and speaking of giant-ass case, the Arklad Collection, 5 discs. This is complete. There's everything that was supposed to come in here, came in here. There's a ton of stuff in here. I don't even know what all is in here. We have little character standees for every character in the game. We have thumbstick covers. We have a hardbound book that is the manual and a mini strategy guide for the first section of the game. We've got 5 discs, including a soundtrack and a making of type deal. Includes 5 game discs, 1 exclusive making of Arklad CD, 150-page leather-bound, leather hardbound art book, instruction manual, exclusive thumb button covers, exclusive memory card holders, and many character standees. So yes, this is. I'd never gotten into Arklad. I saw a little bit of the anime, and then I'm like, I gotta jump on that. I don't know why. Next up, Beyond the Beyond. This is another Camelot game. This is before they became Camelot. I believe they were still Sonic Software Planning at the time they made this. This was the first non-Sega related game that they made. And it is the precursor to Golden Sun. I said Shining the Holy Ark I talked about it being, this is actually even more related. This is a terrible game though. It is filled with glitches and errors and just all sorts of problems. It's still a fun game, but it is riddled with problems. But if you are a fan of the Golden Sun series, play it. It's fantastic, except not. Next up, Brave Fencer Musashi. This is a action RPG from Square where you play as kind of an odd take on the historical figure Musashi, one of the greatest swordsmen who ever lived in Japan. This one you play as him with a magic sword that can steal enemies' abilities, and you play rescuing a rather obnoxious princess. It's a very, very good game, very well done. I mean, it's Square Soft. So that tells you the time frame of it, and that also tells you the quality of it. Not saying that Square went downhill over time, but I'm totally saying that. Next up, Breath of Fire 3. I've played this one a little bit. I've played the original 2 Breath of Fires a lot more, but this one, I mean, I liked the first 2. I had to go with this one, and then following that up, a gift from Culix, who's wearing a watermelon on his head. Breath of Fire 4. I have not gotten a chance to start this one, and I really need to, because it looks so much darker than the rest, and why not? I mean, I like dark role-playing games. It's kind of dark. This one, Bushido Blade, fighting game without health meters. I've done a what the hell were they thinking video, or what were they thinking, I dropped the hell for them. But what were they thinking video for Operation Rainfall? Mostly talked about the character designs, because they look just weird. What? But really cool concept. I think it was just way too ahead of its time. Like, they did a modern version of this. This could be one of the best fighting games ever made. if balanced appropriately. You do kind of have to balance it appropriately. Next up, Castlevania Chronicles. This is a remake of Castlevania 1 and one other game. I don't remember which. I played it long enough to test it because one does not simply just start a Castlevania game and play it all the way through. Unless you have a decent deal of free time, because you're going to die because Medusa heads are a bitch. Following up with that one, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I've done a Let's Play of this. Go watch it. There's nothing else for me to really say about it, other than probably one of my favorite Castlevania games ever made, and that's true for a lot of people. Next up, Chrono Cross. I got nothing to say about that. Culex is doing an LP that I'm sitting in on. Go watch that. I will say, I love it as a game. I hate it as a sequel. Like, if they just removed all the connections to Chrono Trigger, I would have been fine with it as a game. Been awesome. But I played Chrono Trigger first. It was a defining RPG for me. This kind of spits in its face in some ways. Next up, several of these were gifts from Darkseed. Crusaders of Might and Magic. I don't have the manual or cover art for this. I should probably print out just a cover art for it. I remember playing Crusaders of Might and Magic on the PC, so when he was moving and he was giving away a bunch of his games, I jumped on that one because why not? I don't know if it's anything like the PC games. Another one that I've actually seen him play a bit, but I could never really get into myself, Darkstone, kind of a Diablo-esque game. That's what it really felt like, but it just seemed very dick. So I watched him play it for a good couple hours, but I've never gotten into it myself. Pretty decent reviews though. So this is one of my wife's games. She had this before we even really started dating. Dance Dance Revolution Konamix. This is all done by all Konami songs, because that's what you want to dance to when you're revolutionizing your dancing. I don't know where I was going with that one. Next up, you either love this or you hate it. There's really not much of a middle ground. Final Fantasy VII, and I still have sticker on it, $12.99. The case has seen much better days, so I do kind of need to fix this case. It is the greatest hits version. I don't really care about greatest hits versions. It's still the same game. I will say that some of the printings for the discs are actually different for greatest hits versions and even non-greatest hits versions, but again, I have a copy of the game. I can play it. I'm happy. I still can't believe $12.99. I do have to remove that price sticker, but sometimes you want to keep the price stickers on there just as a reminder of how little you actually spend on it. Darkseed actually has a copy of Mega Man Legends that he paid $8.99 for. Pisses me off, because I should have bought it with him. Next up, Final Fantasy VIII. Again, you either love it or you hate it. There's not much of a middle ground with the Final Fantasies. I really don't like this one. Squall's kind of a whiny bitch to me. However, if you do run under the assumption or off the theory that Squall is dead, check out squallisdead.com if you haven't already. If you've played the game, check it out. If you haven't played the game, check it out as you're playing it, because it gives a whole different perspective of what happens. If you go under the Squall is dead logic, I find the game so much more interesting. It doesn't take away the fact that Squall's still a whiny bitch, but makes the game a little more interesting. Next up, again, you either love it or hate it, Final Fantasy IX. This is actually my favorite Final Fantasy numbered title. I can't really count 11 as a numbered title, but it is numbered, but it's an MMO. But I loved it because it kind of goes back to the fantasy aspect rather than the future. Everyone's got giant mech robots that shoot machine guns. Plus, you can't say no to Vivi. Vivi is like the coolest character ever conceived. Also, the soundtrack to this is one of my favorite soundtracks ever. I could listen to You're Not Alone for days on end. Speaking of more Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy Anthology. This one is Final Fantasy V and VI remade for the PS1. Slightly newer graphics and CGI cutscenes for both. This one also says contains a music CD featuring favorite scores from both games. I don't actually think I have that. No, I don't. I don't have the music CD. I'm a sad panda now. These are truths. But most people's favorite is Final Fantasy VI, which was Final Fantasy III here in the U.S. because we fail at numbering things. But that's the quintessential Final Fantasy for a lot of people is Final Fantasy 3, 6. Just remember that. 3 is 6. They're the same game. Just remember that. Because that I don't really remember how to keep track of it half the time. I don't remember what's what half the time. Next up, Final Fantasy Chronicles. This one is Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. Final Fantasy IV was really cool to me because I like the concept of a Dark Knight, because I played a Dark Knight in Final Fantasy XI. But halfway through the game, you change classes and... but I bought this specifically for Chrono Trigger because at the time I did not have an SNES. I saw the anime cutscenes. I'm like, I have to have this game. And I somehow convinced my parents into shelling out $50 for it. So, I got it. And I don't regret it. Next up, Final Fantasy Origins. Look at all these compilations. It's fantastic. This is Final Fantasy 1 and 2, again, remade for the PS1. Again, greatest hits version, don't care. This has new theme songs and CG opening cinemas, art galleries of Yoshitaka Amano's illustration, detailed bestiaries of enemies from each game, expanded event scenes, and news story. So it's just Final Fantasy 1 and 2 with a nice coat of paint. And a couple of nice extras. Next up, probably one of the best tactical role-playing games ever made, Final Fantasy Tactics. And again, it has the part of the price sticker on it. I got this one for $19.99 because I bought it new as a greatest hits. But this is, if you're a fan of tactical RPGs, which I am, because again, I've done all of the Shining Force games, this game is amazing. The class system is just incredible. I would love to see an MMO, like if they... I mean, they're in the process of redoing Final Fantasy XIV, but I would love to see a combination of the Final Fantasy IX, where you gain abilities from equipment, and the sub-job system from Tactics. I think that would be the best thing ever for an MMO. But Tactics is a great game. It's been remade on the PSP as well with a slightly more easy-to-follow translation. And a couple of new classes. I'll get into that later because I do have it. Because I have to. Leave me alone. Last for this video, Grandia. A great franchise, very underrated. Really unique combat system. A really interesting take on active combat. This was also released on the Sega Saturn. I don't have a burned copy of the Sega Saturn because there's not an English patch for it that I've been able to find. I found some parts of English that actually just use this script. So I figured, why not just pick this one up? And I did. But I actually played Grandia 2 first because I didn't know about Grandia 1 at the time. It really slipped through the cracks way back in the day, at least in my area. I played Grandia 2 on the Dreamcast and found out that this was actually released in the US, so I snagged it. Not as good as Grandia 2, but it's fun. But also, I kind of judge Grandia 2 a little bit better since I played it first. It's that kind of, first impression sort of thing. So that's part 1. I've got more parts of the PS1 stuff coming up because I've got a bunch of PS1 games now. So yeah, I'll see you in the next installment. Fill in later.